Howdy team, Reb the Rover here. Just noticed that my headlight is burnt out, so we're going to do a quick video running through how to get this front cowling off, to get to it and change it. To access the headlights, we're going to have to take this whole front assembly off. That might sound daunting, but it's actually quite easy. It's held on with a bolt on either side right here. Mine are Allen's, but I know stock they are Phillips. And then down underneath, you've got this metal tab right here that's this kind of front subframe. It's also bolted to that with Allen keys. And then it's also bolted to your gauge cluster with Allen keys on either side. These are obviously aftermarket because I've got this KLR dash, but on a stock bike, they should be pretty noticeable and easy enough to access. And then down inside here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, there's a plug right here at the top of the screen. And that connects your turn signal to the wiring harness. There's one on each side, right and left. You're going to have to disconnect those or else you're going to rip a bunch of wires out when you try to take this thing off. A little note with these bolts that are down by the side fairings that attach to the gas tank, there's a little spacer between this plastic and this plastic. They're incredibly easy to lose, and if you do and you over tighten them, you can actually stress and crack these. So make sure you don't lose those little spacers as you take the bolts out. So I'm just going to do a couple of quick little clips, pulling all these bolts out. Easy enough, right? Shouldn't be too tight ever, because if you tighten them too much, it'll just crack your plastics. But we're just going to pull that bolt out, like that. We're going to make sure that we get that little metal spacer out from between the two pieces of plastic. Again, if you lose them, it's not the end of the world. You can just put like a bolt in there that's about the same height, but pretty annoying when one goes missing, you're trying to get everything put back together. And then here's this plug down in here, this little gray one. The one on the left side is black. Just going to reach in there. There's a little tab on top of it. I'm just going to squeeze that tab and pull it apart. That was a two-hand job, but as you can see, I've separated them. That way, when you pull this white plastic piece off, it'll come off smooth without tugging on anything. This bolt right here on this tab, there's one on either side. That should be the only one on this frame that you need to access. Everything else should just kind of come off with it. Alright, so pulling this bolt is easy enough. Just a standard Allen key and you got plenty of room. Just got to break it loose and then switch it to the long end. There's a bit of a rubber backing in there, I believe, and so it might not feel like it's getting loose until it very much is. You can just pull it out by hand after that, loosen it up a bit. And then there's the bolt that was attached to the metal tab that was holding this plastic piece onto the frame. And then same with this bolt. Easy enough. I've just got a 5mm on mine. Just gonna break that loose and pull it all the way out of there. Try not to lose any of your washers or anything like that. And there you go. That's one side done. We're gonna flip to the other side and repeat the process, and then this should be ready to remove. As you can see, I have lost a spacer in the past, so I am using a nut on this side to space out the plastics. Once you have all the bolts out and those wires detached, it should just be about as easy as getting in here and just kind of shimmying the whole thing off. You got to kind of go a little cockeyed to get over the instrument cluster, but as you can see, you can pull it off. So once I've got it resting here, you'll see that there's two plugs right there. Those are for the high beam and low beam. You can see my high beam, I've wrapped a little piece of green tape around so I always remember which is which. You're just going to have to unplug those and you can take the whole front cowling off. There's the front of the bike, off to the side, out of the way. And now we've got the front of the motorcycle without a cowling. So whenever I have a light burnout, it's usually just the light, but I do like to just double check my wires, make sure that there's nothing super obvious, nothing looks like it's cooked or anything like that, that the plugs are still looking okay. Looks like the dielectric grease that's in them is starting to dry out, so I'll probably put a little bit of fresh stuff in those before I go back in. But for the meantime, we'll come back to this and we will access the actual light bulbs from back here. So this part is pretty easy. these rubber things are kind of like a dust housing, right? Keep dust out of the actual light bulb area. So you're just gonna pull that off. As you can see, this is the bulb right here, and it's held on by this little metal tab. That's what presses it into the housing so it doesn't jostle loose. What we're gonna do is we're gonna push it and pull it. There's a little metal tab you gotta clear, and you can pull the wire out of the way, and then just pull your old plug out. Easy as. All right, so here is the old plug. The filament is absolutely smoked. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or not, but it's gone. So it's on this black plastic thing. You can see here is our replacement bulb that doesn't have that. You're gonna have to kind of jostle it out of there. Shimmy it a little bit, if you will. This one's really in here. There you go. And this is gonna go back in the bike. So you see these prongs right here. You're going to get a little bit of dielectric grease on each of those before you plug your new bulb in. That'll just kind of help with connection and stuff like that. With a new bulb, it's super important to not touch the actual glass. Getting that dirty or getting finger grease, like grease from your fingertips, things like that on it, will actually kind of make it conduct heat wrong and can actually burn out that filament a little bit faster. So if you do have a new bulb, either wear gloves or be really careful not to touch the actual glass. So I found some dielectric grease. We're just gonna get a little bit down and in there on either of these prongs. This bike in particular really likes to eat headlights, so I try to be really diligent with this stuff. It's pretty uncommon for them to burn lights most of the time, so this is definitely not a necessary step, but for me it certainly is. So once you've got that grease in there, you're just going to take it and put the prongs in, press it back in there until it sits nice and flush with those kind of protrusions coming out of the plastic piece there, and you're ready to reinstall it with the new bulb back into the cowling. One little thing to note, you'll see at the top here there's a notch, an otherwise perfect circle, and if you look at this actual unit, there's also a notch on either side. You need to make sure one of those lines up with it, so as you slide it in, it kind of sits well in that channel, and then you're just going to get that metal clip back over, push it in, a little hard to do one-handed, there we go, and now you're all locked back in. From there we just need to put this dust cover back on, and it's ready to go back on the bike. Okay, we've got the dust housing reinstalled. It's nice and snug. There's no big gaps anywhere. It looks just like the one that's on the high beam that was still working. If we come over to the bike, you'll see on the plugs that we've put some fresh dielectric grease into each one of those, so that should help with connectivity or anything like that and keep it from shorting out if it gets too wet. So now we can put the housing back on, the cowling back on, and make the bike look like a KLR again. Okay, when we want to reinstall the housing, we want to make sure that we're not getting caught on any of the bits and bobs that are sticking out, but we need to get it close enough to plug these in. So we're going to kind of carefully work this on, avoiding smashing any of the plastics against anything. Then we're going to put the plugs into the light bulbs. The high beam is on the brake lever side. The low beam / daytime running light is on the clutch lever side. Once you've got those plugged in, you just need to very carefully walk the housing back up and over everything so you don't damage any of the plastics. And it should kind of settle in like that. And then we just need to button it back up with the right bolts. Start by hand tightening everything, making sure that it lines up. A little bit of fandangling to get in some of these hard to reach places. Also, while you're in here, don't forget that you need to plug your turn signals back in. Be pretty annoying if you got a ticket or something like that just because you forgot to click some wires back together. But once we got all these bolts kind of finger tight and where they need to be, and we make sure that everything is lining up the way we want it, we will go back through with our Allen keys and snug everything up so that it is good and tight and won't come loose while we're riding. As you can see, I've started to hand tighten all the bolts. Like I was just saying, make sure that everything is still relatively loose until you know it's all lined up properly so you don't crank anything too tight. But before you put everything on, just do a quick sanity check and make sure that that new headlight is working and that your high beam still comes on with the switch. So we are good to go in that regard. So So we're going to tighten up this last bolt. I've already snugged everything else down. It's good and straight, no drama. I remembered my spacers between this plastic and this plastic. Everything is good and solid. Everything is plugged back in, so we're just going to do a quick little sanity check. Turn the bike on, turn signal right. Yep, that's working. Turn signal left is working. We've got headlight, we've got high beam, and now we are safe and ready to ride. All right, that is changing out the headlight on a KLR 650. It might seem a little daunting at first when you look at it, but hopefully this video shows you just how easy it is to do yourself. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.